The Acolytes have arrived, and at the time of this recording, Mania roams the star chart. In this podcast-style video, I'm going to talk to you about all of the mods that Mania drops, namely Catalyzer Link, Embedded Catalyzer, Weeping Wounds, and the infamous Nano Applicator. If these aren't the mods you're looking for, check the description for the entire Acolyte Cast playlist to find my videos on the mods from the other Acolytes. I know I skipped Violence, but I know most of you at least gave that one a try for Maiming Strikes to keep or sell, so we'll talk about Violence in the next few days. As we get started, I want to note that Mania is perhaps the very best Acolyte for drops that actually impact gameplay. Although the mods Mania drops aren't all of a crazy power level alone, they allow for some unusual and worthwhile builds that are almost impossible otherwise. At the same time, Mania is extremely low value for new players, since almost all of the use cases for the good mods Mania drops require many other mods to work. Finally, a fun little note. Throughout my other videos on the other Acolytes, you may have noticed that the uncommon or common drops were often the stronger mods in the drop tables, while the rare mod was, if not bad, at least the least exciting of the batch. Perplexingly, Mania is the opposite. So we're going to go from rarest to most common this time and cover the exciting mods first. In that vein, behold, Nano Applicator. As Mania's rare drop, this has about a 5% drop chance. I'm going to come out strong and recommend buying one while the market is flooded with them and they're still cheap, as this mod is very valuable but also highly undervalued by many players because its power is not immediately obvious. Nano is good because it allows several key pellet-based weapons to reach 100% status chance before multi-shot, where they could not do so before without a specialized ribbon. And that's good because of the strange way that pellet-based weapons calculate status. Plain and simple. But explaining all of that stuff is not simple, so consider pausing the video and grabbing a snack and let's break it down. First of all, you need to know that weapons with pellets will normally divide their listed status chance among their pellets, resulting in deceptively low status output in practice. In many cases, I recommend just using 90% elements on shotguns rather than the almost always superior 60% dual status elements because the status chance is so worthless when it's divided among the pellets. However, for whatever reason, this changes once pellet-based weapons reach 100% status chance before multi-shot. At that point, suddenly, every pellet procs a status effect, and multi-shot will add even more pellets. Let me give you an example. This means that a shotgun with 10 pellets, with 99% status chance before multi-shot, is firing 10 pellets that each have a 9.9% status chance because it's divided among the pellets. If you give that shotgun just 1% more status chance without using multi-shot, which would bring it to 100% status chance before multi-shot, it will fire the same 10 pellets, but with 100% status chance each. You'd expect 10 pellets with 10% status chance each, but that final 1% status chance gives you over 10 times the status output, and of course, infinitely more consistency. So what Nano here is doing is allowing some pellet-based weapons to reach that 100% before multi-shot threshold, where they couldn't do that before unless they had a Riven mod with status chance. Weapons with at least 30% based status will be able to reach 100% with just the 4 dual status elementals we have, but Nano allows weapons with as low as 24% base status chance to get there as well. Theoretically, you could also combine a Riven with Nano and all or some of those dual status elemental mods to make even more weapons reach that threshold. So now a few clarifications. The reason people say that shotguns care about this is that almost all pellet-based weapons are shotguns, but keep in mind that not all shotguns use pellets. For example, the Arcaplasmor fires just one projectile and calculates status normally. The Astilla fires glass slugs, which calculate status normally, although it does use its status chance twice, once for the slug and again for the glass explosion. The Corinth fires pellets, which divide its status chance with its primary fire, but fires a grenade with normal status calculations using its secondary fire. The point is that this weird status chance math is not a property of shotguns, it's a property of pellets. So take off your multi-shot, shoot your weapons, and check if they're actually pellets. 100% status chance is meaningless and suboptimal unless the weapon uses pellets due to marginal benefit analysis. On the other hand, if it does use pellets, and it can reach 100% status chance before multi-shot, you should almost always build for that because of the gigantic leap in status output. And the deal with this before multi-shot thing, that I've said like 20 times while explaining this, is that multi-shot doesn't add status chance to things, it adds status output. You're getting more bullets, which copy your status chance, so yes, your weapon does output more status, but that's not the same thing as the stat that is status chance. The arsenal says status, but is referring to approximate status output per trigger pull, not to status chance. This is why multi-shot doesn't factor into your 100% status threshold with pellet-based weapons. It is important, however, in the sense that a weapon that has reached 100% status chance before multi-shot would like as much multi-shot as it can get, since it'll be getting guaranteed status effects on each additional pellet from multi-shot. Just be careful of multi-shot throwing off your calculations. Oh, okay, that's why Nano is good in theory. In practice, some of my favorite Nano weapons are the Comb and the regular Heck. The Comb is already a destroyer of worlds and ammo reserves, and it becomes a weapon to mangle gods with a status effect on every single pellet. It's full auto, it increases its pellet count as it spools up, and it has a huge ammo reserve. It's gross. Try to get some fire rate in there. If you can't fit it in your main build, try using Arcane Tempo. I can't overstate how good the Comb is when it's built like this. I recommend Corrosive and Blast, even though the slash damage on the Comb is decent. I find it's too low for a viral setup. Then there's the regular Heck, which can reach that status threshold and also has the highest multi-shot value in the game with its Syndicate augment, which can't be used on the Vacor Heck. This means that it outputs a tremendous volume of status effects with a single shot, and because the Hex series has its signature tight spread, you can use it as a status sniper. It'll remove huge chunks of armor from enemies, knock down distant groups, gas proc faraway hordes, or trigger mini riots with radiation and viral. I especially like to mention this Heck build because many newer players pick up the normal Heck early, and then eventually get the Vacor Heck, which surpasses the normal version in killing power once you have primed Ravage. This build gives the regular Heck a very different strength while repurposing what would have been an obsolete part of your arsenal. And again, those were just two of the possibilities. Nano is interesting on the Sobek too, for example. You can use 3 dual status elements, Nano, and the Sobek's augment that gives it base status chance, to achieve your 100% status threshold while still focusing your elements to corrosive and cold. Almost all of what I have to say about Nano was just explaining why it's good at all, but I'll quickly note that its requirement that you cast something to activate it is trivial. You can use any operator ability to activate Nano, so even if you have no energy, it's easy to keep it on. Still, consider using your nanoed weapons with warframes that tend to use their powers often, for maximum effortlessness. To close out this insanely long segment on Nano, it's true that Riven mods with status chance can often obsolete it, but they can also combo with it to save more build space and focus status types further. It's also true that a few of the best nano weapons, like the Comb, run very expensive Riven mod prices, so even barring advanced combos, this is a much cheaper way to get a similarly insane level of power. What else can I say? Go get this mod. This is must-try buildcraft. That's it for Nano, but the hits keep coming. Next up is Weeping Wounds, one of Mania's uncommon drops with about a 22% chance to drop. Weeping Wounds is basically Blood Rush but with status chance, and that complicates things because status chance caps at 100% while critical chance does not. I'd term Weeping Wounds as more of a build option than some kind of upgrade, but it is very good where it's good, and it does make certain kinds of weapons more powerful, especially critical chance focused weapons. Let me explain. A normal hybrid weapon build running Blood Rush but also 2 dual status elementals, Drifting Contact, will usually be used on a weapon with something like, let's say 14% crit chance and 25% status chance. And then it's going to reach around a 66% status chance after those mods, which is consistent enough to rely on. But since Weeping Wounds gives you dramatically more status chance in a single mod slot without unfocusing your status types, you can use a weapon with, say, the opposite stat spread, and you'll end up with more status at the cost of 1 mod slot while still having higher critical chance. You're looking at weapons with more like 25% critical chance and more like 14% status chance. You're still grabbing Blood Rush and your dual status elemental combo and Drifting Contact, and then your status chance ends up at around 40% before Weeping Wounds. This is perfect and will result in just about 100% status chance once you reach a meager 2.5x combo counter. That's only 45 hits, and in my extensive experience using this mod is the average combo counter value you'll be sitting at with average melee usage. The problem is that melee builds are really hungry for space. There's a lot of good melee mods. This is not so true of other weapon categories. Melee mods have a lot of competition for space, so the mod you'll often end up taking off for Weeping Wounds in the build I just described is Condition Overload, which is a pretty meaningful loss even in low status variety situations. With a lot of status effects, it's just out of the question because it's so much damage, but even if you don't have too many status effects, it's a very big multiplier. This lack of space means that Weeping Wounds is best in situations where you're unlikely to be stacking many status types, which I find is most often the case when you run slash and viral weapons, since they don't benefit from any other status effects on their own, and the most common forced proc on melee stance combos is slash. So what I mean by that is that puncture and impact weapons often lean toward corrosive, but they may very well still get a forced slash proc from their stance, and they can benefit from viral's health halving at the very least, so they make stronger condition overload candidates. If you have the other statuses, just floating around, they benefit the weapon on their own, and then condition overload makes it go even further. Don't get me wrong, all condition overload weapons are, condition overload is good pretty much everywhere, but the status consistency of Weeping Wounds is powerful too, and weapons with lower base status chance weren't going to do anything crazy with condition overload anyway, so this is a way to make them really good in a different way. And not everyone has condition overload, so that's pretty valuable too. Another situation where Weeping Wounds is good is one where you have a reason to forego a normal elemental combo, leaving you with at least one open slot for Weeping Wounds because you're not running two elements. This could be a high status melee weapon used in a situation where the procs you would normally run on it are already abundant or irrelevant. Maybe you're using a Warframe or another weapon with sufficient armor stripping or viral procs, so building those in your melee weapon wouldn't really do anything. You could run a single 90% elemental mod and Drifting Contact and Weeping Wounds, and then that would give you 40% status before Weeping Wounds on a weapon with decent status chance for constant status procs, just like with the low status weapon and the full hybrid build. Yet another situation where you might run Weeping Wounds is in the place of Blood Rush on weapons that really only have viable status and lack critical stats. I usually try to get Healing Return and often Primed Reach into those weapons, but they could conceivably have space for Weeping too. Again, I think Weeping is more of an option than an upgrade, but it does create weapons with a different ramp up than other hybrid builds. A normal hybrid build starts out fairly strong due to its upfront status chance, and then steadily ramps up with crits as the combo counter rises. But a Weeping hybrid build, by contrast, starts out very weak with low crit and low status, and then it spikes up very fast after a few seconds as the status skyrockets, and its crit rises too. Then it eventually slows down as Weeping Wounds gives you your maximum status chance and stops benefiting you at very high combo counter values. I really do feel that the average player spends most of their time at a 2.5x combo, which suggests that Weeping Wounds hybrid builds would be a great fit for them. So try them out. I definitely recommend trying them out. That's it for Weeping Wounds. Let's talk about Embedded Catalyzer, Mania's other uncommon drop. So this is Nano Applicator, but for pistols. Because stacking lots of status chance is not in any way special outside the context of pellet weapons, and is indeed suboptimal due to marginal benefit analysis, there is fundamentally no reason to use this type of mod on anything that doesn't have pellets. You should use your elemental combo made with 2 dual status elementals and leave your status at that. That's the largest relative gain for the smallest mod slot cost. There are a very small handful of exceptions, like the Pox is the one that comes to mind, on which I do think maximum status chance with Corrosive and Blast is optimal, but in those cases you want the elemental damage alongside the status. So we're really only interested in pellet pistols, and mostly in those that can't already reach 100% status before multi-shot. Bronco Prime and Ak Bronco Prime, as well as the Detron and the Mara Detron, can already do that with solid performance without Embedded Catalyzer. But you can use it to refocus your elements in those builds. Generally, those weapons are running Corrosive and Blast, but you could use Embedded Catalyzer to remove one of the elements and get Corrosive with Heat or Cold, causing the enemies to remain standing and therefore more vulnerable to punch through in exchange for a very, very small marginal damage loss. And you also get a lot more Corrosive procs, which is good. Not exciting, but good. But come on, you're thinking, you can do better than that. And you're right, I can do better than that. What I can do is make Twin Comac reach 100% status before multi-shot with a Riven, embedded Catalyzer, and probably 3 dual status elements, creating the mini secondary akimbo comb you never knew you wanted until now. Depending on your Riven, you're going to have to use, again, like on average, 1 extra slot to make this work compared to the comb, but because this is a pistol, you don't need space for fire rate. Lethal Torrent already provides that. You also don't really want fire rate as much, because Twin Comac has half the base damage, but double the fire rate of the comb. So you're going to need to take some extremely drastic measures to keep that thing supplied with ammo. And it's got a smaller magazine than the comb, and it's also got lower ammo stores. Look, I didn't say it was good. I use my fun ideas that are actually good in Framework. It's just a thing that you can do that will kill the enemies. Am I going to do it? Yes. Or should you do it? No. But is it cool as hell that you can make a secondary comb? You tell me. Anyway, embedded Catalyzer is okay, has some fun uses. What does not have fun uses and is not okay is Mania's common drop, Catalyzer Link. This is not nano for primaries. It works the same way, but gives 30% less status chance. Why? Why does this exist? Even at 90%, it wouldn't be very good because we don't have pellet-based primaries. At 60%, I cannot think of a reason where you would use this. I want to re-emphasize that stacking status chance isn't special unless you have pellets. It's bad due to the smaller and smaller relative gains you get with each status mod you add, unless you have pellets. 100% status chance looks good on the screen, and lots of other content creators wrongly point it out as a strong quality on many non-pellet weapons, but they're wrong. You're literally wasting status chance when you hit 100% if it's not with pellets, and there are way better things to run in your builds, in almost all of your rifle builds, than a third dual status elemental mod. If you're thinking of running more than 2 dual status elementals, or just more status, for anything other than an extremely specific utility build, first check very carefully to see if crits or some fire rate or some multi-shot or literally anything else would be even remotely viable. Try using a reload speed mod. If there really and truly is nothing else, and yet the weapon is inexplicably not just a bad weapon, which it usually is if it isn't good with any of those other mods, run more of the elements you have instead of adding more dual status elementals or more status. If you have corrosive, run a 90% element to give yourself even more corrosive, to bias your status effects toward more corrosive, and you get more damage too. If you're using viral with a slashy weapon, run Fanged Fusillade to bias your status toward more slash, as long as you have enough viral that you're seeing 1 proc per target. I don't have anything else to say. I rest my case. Mania drops great rare mods. Catalyzer Link is hot garbage. That's all we got time for, folks. If you liked this video, tell your friends. And check out the other Acolyte Cast playlist for over an hour more of me talking about Acolyte mods. I'll see you all next time.